They call him the Iceman. But if you've ever seen him on the darts stage, you know Gerwyn Price is anything but cold. One minute he's roaring like a caged animal. The next he's squaring up to opponents, or even the crowd. Love him or hate him, this guy doesn't just play darts. He ignites it. From brutal stare-downs to full-blown bust-ups, Price has left a trail of chaos behind him. And it's made him one of the most talked-about figures the sport has ever seen. But how did he go from rugby hardman to darts' most divisive villain? And what were the moments that truly blew up? Let's break down the wildest clashes of Gerwyn Price's career. And trust me, it gets personal. Gerwyn Price had only just started making waves in darts when he clashed with two-time world champ Adrian Lewis. And it didn't take long for things to get spicy. Heading into their World Match Play Showdown in 2016, Lewis didn't hold back. He called Price a big mouth who's never won anything and never will. That aged about as well as a warm pint. From the opening handshake, the tension was real. Price started playing to the crowd, gesturing, building the atmosphere. Lewis, clearly annoyed, tried to match the energy, but it came off awkward, like he didn't know if this was darts or WWE. As the match progressed, both men threw subtle digs without ever actually speaking. They'd linger after throws, stare each other down, celebrate just a little too hard. It was pure psychological warfare. Lewis ended up winning 11-5, and as Price walked off the stage, Lewis threw a sarcastic slow clap his way. But here's the twist. Price didn't even flinch. No blow-up, no comeback, just a cold exit. But the real fire came after. In his post-match interview, Lewis doubled down. That just shows why he's a nobody. Petty? Absolutely. But this wasn't just a match. It was the beginning of darts' most volatile rivalry. And it was only the beginning. If the Adrian-Lewis clash lit the fuse, the 2018 Grand Slam final with Gary Anderson was the full-on explosion. This was Price's shot at his first major title, and he wasn't going to play nice to get it. From the very first leg, he was celebrating like he'd already won the whole tournament. Fist pumps, shouting, smirking, all of it right in Anderson's face. Anderson, a legend of the game, was not impressed. Things boiled over during the 15th leg when Price celebrated mid-leg, bumping into Anderson on his way back from the board. It wasn't even a winning shot, just a setup, but he treated it like a match winner. Anderson lost it. He stepped away from the Aki, shaking his head and ranting off mic. You could see it. He wasn't just annoyed, he was furious. And Price? He doubled down. More celebrations, more smirks, more, what are you gonna do about it? By the 27th leg, Anderson cracked. He stopped mid-throw, clearly rattled. He couldn't focus. He couldn't ignore it anymore. The mental warfare had worked. Gerwyn Price went on to win 16-13 and claim his first ever major PDC title. He celebrated like a man who didn't just win a trophy, he won his way. But the consequences came fast. The PDC hit him with a massive 21,500-pound fine and a suspended 3-month ban, citing bringing the game into disrepute and inflammatory behavior. Many in the darts world called it disgraceful. Others said Anderson lost his cool and paid the price. Fans were split down the middle, some booing Price at every event after, others wearing Team Iceman shirts and chanting his name. But one thing was now crystal clear. Gerwyn Price wasn't just a player, he was a persona, and he had just become the most polarizing figure in the sport. By 2021, Gerwyn Price had fought his way to the top. He was world champion, world #1, and still very much darts' ultimate villain. But in the World Grand Prix quarterfinals, he came up against an opponent he couldn't shake off. Not a player, but thousands of fans. From the moment Price stepped on stage to face Dave Chisnell, the atmosphere was toxic. Every dart he threw, every cheer he tried to fire up, it was met with an avalanche of boos. Not just casual heckling, this was organized hostility. And the more the crowd jeered, the more determined Price became. He stormed through the match, beating Chisnell 3-0 in sets. Cold, clinical. He didn't drop a single set, and yet, no matter what he did, the audience refused to give him a single ounce of respect. By the end, you could feel the tension like static in the air. And then came the explosion. Not during the match, but after it. In the post-match interview, Price didn't hold back. He stared straight down the camera and said, "The crowd are a bit rubbish again, as you can hear."
It was a difficult game, obviously, crowd a bit rubbish again, but as you can hear, I won, so no matter what they do, I'll keep winning.
Then he doubled down. "The crowd are absolutely pathetic, but I won." And just like that, he gave the most unapologetic mic drop of the tournament. But he wasn't done yet. As he left the interview area and walked back out toward the crowd, he threw his arms up, flexed like a bodybuilder, and stared them down as if to say, some fans said he was feeding off the hate. Others said he'd lost the plot. But the truth? This was Gerwyn Price. He didn't just play for the crowd, he played against them. And the scary part? He seemed to like it that way. By the time the 2022 World Darts Championship rolled around, Gerwyn Price wasn't just defending his title, he was defending his reputation as darts' most unpredictable presence. And in the third round, he ran into someone just as fiery, Huybrechts. On paper, this should have been a routine win, but on the night, things got messy. The match went back and forth. Sets were tied 3-3. Nerves on edge. The pressure was suffocating. And as the sudden death decider kicked in, the tension exploded. Price nailed a crucial leg to go up 3-2 and let out one of his trademark roars. Not to the crowd, not to himself, straight at the camera. And that's when everything changed. Huybrechts didn't take it lightly. He turned to the referee and made a clear complaint. No words needed. You could see the frustration in his body language. The ref approached Price for a quick word, but Price wasn't having it. He stepped toward Huybrechts, visibly fired up. Face tense, shoulders squared. For a second, it looked like we were about to see a full-blown confrontation. But then, just as quickly, it flipped. Price patted Huybrechts on the back, gave him a nod and backed off. The storm passed, barely. He went on to win the match 4-3, surviving the scare. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't just the darts, it was the drama. After the game, Price addressed it calmly, but with that classic edge. He gave it large when he hit his doubles, so I gave it back. That's 1-1. Simple, sharp, no apologies. What could have been a simple handshake and go moment turned into another classic Price flashpoint. Emotions boiling, lines being crossed, and just enough fire to keep fans glued to their screens. And the most telling part? That entire moment, from roar to shoulder pat, felt like Price wasn't just playing darts. He was playing psychology. Most of Gerwyn Price's bust-ups happen with words, looks, or roaring energy, but in 2019, things almost boiled over into a full-on fight. It was Premier League Night 15, and Price was up against Gurney, a player known for his own fiery edge. Neither man was in the mood to back down, but no one expected what happened next. The match ended in a draw. Tense, hard-fought, and emotionally charged. But it was the handshake, if you can even call it that turned everything upside down. They met at the center of the stage. Price offered his hand. Gurney grabbed it, but instead of a simple shake, it turned into a tug of war. Then a shove. Then a head-to-head standoff, nose to nose, with words you wouldn't want picked up by any mic. Security rushed in, trying to separate them. But each time one started to walk away, the other turned, snapping more words. The tension was thick. You could feel the heat pouring off the stage. Commentators were stunned. Fans were on the edge of their seats. For a moment, it looked like fists might fly. And that's not an exaggeration. Afterward, Price brushed it off in a way only he could. I don't know what was going through his head. No shouting, no explanation. Just classic, cold-blooded Price. What made this bust-up stand out wasn't just the intensity. It was the suddenness. There was no slow build, no theatrics. It just erupted, and it left everyone watching with the same thought. If you're stepping on stage with Gerwyn Price, you'd better be ready for anything. Not every Gerwyn Price clash ends in shouting or shoving. Sometimes, the silence speaks louder, and in 2020, against Peter Wright, it was ice cold. This was the semi-final of the World Darts Championship. High stakes, massive pressure. Two elite players with completely different energy. Wright, flamboyant but calm. Price, intense and explosive. From the very first set, the vibe was weird. After taking the opener, Wright reached out and gave Price a playful tap on the arm. Nothing aggressive, just a friendly gesture. But Price didn't even flinch. No smile, no nod. Just a deadpan face as he turned and stormed off for the break. It wasn't angry, it was worse. It was dismissive. As the match unfolded, the tension simmered. Wright kept landing shots. Price kept roaring back, literally. At one point, after leveling the sets, he let out a thunderous shout and brushed past Wright with a shoulder bump. Wright didn't react, but the stare he gave as Price walked off, pure steel. Set by set, the match tightened. Every leg felt personal. You could see it in the way they stood, the lack no fireworks, no screaming, just an invisible wall between two of Dart's biggest names. And sometimes, that kind of silence is louder than anything Price has ever shouted. Gerwyn Price doesn't just throw darts. He throws drama, intensity, and chaos onto every stage he walks on. And whether it's squaring up to opponents, clashing with fans, or turning a handshake into a standoff, he's redefined what it means to be a character in darts. But behind the fire and fury is a player who wins, a lot. Since bursting onto the scene, Price has become a world champion, reached the top of the rankings, and made himself a fixture in nearly every major final. He's proved the doubters wrong over and over again. And yet, the louder the crowd boos, the more fired up he seems to get. Is it all part of the plan? Maybe, maybe not. Some say he's just passionate. Others call it calculated chaos. But one thing's certain, when Gerwyn Price steps on stage, you have to watch. Because anything can happen, and it usually does. Even in a year like 2024, where his form dipped and retirement rumors started swirling, you get the feeling he's not done yet. Price is unpredictable, volatile, electric. And if history tells us anything, he's just one roar away from his next explosion.